This is another DEM podcast about digital asset management. I'm Henrik Dikior. Today I'm speaking with Margie Foster. Margie, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Great. Margie, how are you involved with digital asset management?
I work as a digital asset management librarian for a global semiconductor company. And my position is within the marketing department. So I'm responsible for all the rich media that is involved with the marketing collateral. So I have everything from large banners that hang at events over our booth to video files to print collateral to anything that goes out on .com.
Why does a global semiconductor company use digital asset management?
A semiconductor company, especially a global one, is no different from any other global company in the sense that it needs to reach as many of its customers as possible, as fast as possible, and a digital asset management system is a key piece in certainly the marketing group being able to reach out to their customers.
What are the biggest challenges and successes you've seen with digital asset management?
Well, as far as challenges go, initially, and I started with digital asset management back in the day when it was just beginning, and what I've seen over the years is the digital asset management systems themselves are becoming more and more accepted as something that is integral to a marketing function. We need to be able to access whatever, whenever we need to by whomever needs to see it. And certainly the systems do that. Where I'm seeing the challenge, it continues to be in the positions that work with the systems, specifically something like my own, a digital asset management librarian. There is a constant challenge to prove the worth where we tend to be victims of our own success in that we make it look easy. Looks like the information just falls into place. All the files are where they're supposed to be. And, sure enough, some cost-conscious manager is going to start asking herself, do I really need a professional person to do this? Can I get my admin to do this? Or better yet, can I get the users of the system to just update things as they go along? And the answer, of course, is no, because they won't as far as the users go. And what they will do is the best they can when they can, but frankly, they have full-time positions that don't require the management, the care and feeding of the system. So one of the biggest challenges then becomes how to defend the position, having at least one person with the overview to help maintain consistency. And frankly, I think that the consistency should be spread across the company. Anybody that's responsible for metadata or tagging or any kind of SEO, there needs to be a comprehensive cross-functional team there in place so that the person with the digital asset management system is speaking with the people that are keywording some of the graphics on the website or something. Because that position is also about training and access and speed, you wouldn't think that proving the worth of the position is that much of a challenge, but it really, really is. And I like to think that it's a part of a slow process of acceptance. It took a while for people to kind of get their heads around the idea of a digital asset management system. Now, more and more, that's becoming accepted. And now we're dealing with whether or not we really need someone dedicated, at least one person dedicated to the maintenance of that system. As far as successes go, it's good to, what I've seen as far as successes go, is I have been able to empower users to find what they're looking for when they need it. And I have prolific users that I rarely hear from unless they have some sort of issue that hasn't come up before, which is great. I consider that a major success, the people I don't hear from. I consider it a success whenever I get budget allocated for the upgrades when I need them. My system happens to be proprietary and third party, and so there's always an issue of renewing licenses and expanding functionality and so on and so forth. So anytime I get to do that, that's definitely a success. And the other factor that I would consider a success is when I get people coming to me and saying, hey, so-and-so told me about this. That happens because I work for a very large company where we have thousands of employees. So I depend a lot on word of mouth. In addition to whatever promotional exercises I can take to put out the word that the system's there and it's there to help you and so on and so forth. Because in addition to regular users who do that marketing collateral, I also hear from PowerPoint users that are making presentations. They may or may not be part of marketing. They may be part of one of the business units doing presentation to whomever. And when word gets around to people I wouldn't normally deal with, and they're coming to me and saying, hey, I've heard you got this, that's a success.
Margie, what advice would you like to share with DAM professionals and people aspiring to become DAM professionals?
I would strongly recommend that anybody looking to get into digital asset management, first they need to consider whether or not they're going into a for-profit environment or a non-profit environment. They really are two very different worlds, and there's a lot of opportunity in the non-profit environment. My experience, however, is with the for-profit, and that's what I'd like to speak to. I would say for those in place, always start with the users, go back to the users. They're going to be the key to really making the system a success. So it's basic questions. You want to do an inventory of your users. You want to know what they need. You want to know, can the users themselves be categorized? Are they, of course, that helps when you're setting up your system, because you're going to have some power users with more privileges than the occasional user and so on and so forth. But also it's going to help in terms of helping them come up with essential keywords, words that how they think, how they use the system. I've learned, especially when I came over to marketing, that most of the different departments within a corporation have their own lingo for the product, essentially. And whether or not that spreads throughout the company almost doesn't matter, because if you're considering a certain business group and you need to factor into the system to keyword accordingly, they use different terms. And you need to make sure that that user group, their terminology, how they're thinking. For example, I have one user group that likes to use the internal code word for products before those are actually launched. They become something else once they're launched, their official name. So I make it my practice to, when I'm keywording anything related to them, to also include those internal sort of informal references. So it all goes back to the user, and as long as someone either within the field or just starting in the field or looking to get in the field remembers that, I think they'll be fine. The other strong piece of advice I recommend is there's two groups in particular in the for-profit environment that you want to partner with, and that's the IT group and the legal group. They're essential because there's so much information out there, especially with IT, that even if you're coming to the position with a relatively strong background in IT, unless that's your major function to stay abreast of the latest things, you're going to need all the information you can get. And these folks, the folks in IT, for example, know what works best with the existing systems, and they often know what's the planned systems. And so they're in the best position to be able to assist. It's like you want to always be on the good side of your car mechanic, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is not somebody you want messing with your car, your engine, or whatever. You always want to stay on the good side of IT. It also helps to stay on the good side of legal because you want to be very conscientious about rights and permissions, especially if you're dealing with any kind of stock imagery or any sort of restricted material, right? You want to make sure that you're doing exactly what legal is telling you to do. Another factor that I have found to be very helpful that I would strongly recommend is to, whether or not your manager asks for it, have your dollar value reports ready and current at a moment's notice, because you never know when you're going to need to turn around and say, oh yeah, well, this month I saved our group X amount. And by the way, this is how I factored that. A lot of times there's folks that just hear those dollar values, and it's important to remember that. As impassioned as you may be about the need for digital asset management, it all has to be backed up in the for-profit environment with why it is a cost savings, or what is the value, how is this going to pay off in the immediate term, and also going forward in the long term.
Thanks, Margie.
My pleasure. Thank you.
For more on this and other digital asset management topics, go to anotherdamblog.com. For this podcast and 170 other episodes, go to anotherdamppodcast.com. If you have any comments or questions, please feel free to email me at anotherdamblog@gmail.com. Thanks again.